Still taking the train? Ryan's voice cut across the living room like a knife, smooth and smug, the kind of tone he had perfected over years of family gatherings. My cousin didn't need to raise his voice to humiliate me. The way he leaned back in that oversized leather chair, glass of scotch in hand, did all the work for him. He glanced at me from head to toe, then smirked at the others in the room. The laughter followed immediately. A couple of my uncles chuckled. My aunt tried to cover her grin with her hand, and even my younger brother Jacob shook his head with that familiar, "here we go again" expression. I wanted to say something, but before I could, Dad's voice broke the rhythm. "Emily," he sighed, slow and heavy, "you really still take the train everywhere? At your age?" My stomach tightened. There it was. Not just Ryan mocking me, but my own father joining in, confirming what everyone already believed. To them, I was the odd one out, the underachiever who never figured it out. They thought my life was small, practical, and unremarkable. Mom, sweet as always, tried to smooth it over. She reached for Dad's arm. "Charles, stop. Not everyone needs to drive a car that costs more than a house to prove something." But her words were drowned out by Ryan's laugh. "Exactly, Aunt Linda. Some of us just like nice things." He tilted his wrist, flashing a Rolex so bright it caught the chandelier's light. He made sure everyone saw it before taking another slow sip of his drink. I stayed silent, not because I had nothing to say, but because I knew something they didn't. It happened fast. Dad's gaze, sharp and trained from years of discipline, suddenly narrowed in on me. No, not me. My wrist. His eyes froze. His breath caught like he'd seen a ghost. Slowly he leaned forward, his brows knitting tighter the longer he stared. For the first time in years, the laughter in the room faded. Everyone turned toward him, then toward me. "Emily." Dad's voice was low, almost trembling. He pointed. "That watch. Do you even know what you're wearing?" Ryan snorted. "What, that thing? Looks like a knockoff you'd get from a street vendor." But Dad didn't laugh. His face had gone pale, his jaw locked. "That's a Zenith Chronomaster limited edition. Only 10 were ever made. That watch, it's worth $2 million. The room collapsed into silence. I looked around at the stunned faces, the disbelief, the jaws practically unhinged. Ryan's smirk vanished like someone had slapped it off his face. Mom's hand froze halfway to her glass of water. Jacob's eyes darted from me to Dad like he was waiting for a punchline that never came. And me? I smiled, calm, collected, almost amused. "This old thing?" I said softly, lifting my wrist just enough for everyone to see the watch shimmer under the chandelier's glow. "Oh, it's nothing special." Gasps. "A couple of cousins?" whispered under their breath. The tension in the room was no longer laughter at my expense. It was shock, awe, confusion. The air itself felt charged, like static before a storm. I let the silence stretch just long enough for everyone to squirm. Ryan's face turned red, his jaw tight. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback ready. Uncle David shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly not enjoying the sudden shift in attention. Then I leaned back casually and said the words that would tilt the entire evening upside down. "You know," I added, keeping my voice calm but just loud enough, "that's not even the most impressive thing I brought tonight." And just like that, every head in the room snapped back toward me. The room erupted with questions. "What do you mean?" "Emily, what are you talking about? What could be more than that watch?" I didn't answer. Not yet. I just sat there, smiling to myself, letting their curiosity eat away at them. Because if they thought the watch was shocking, they had no idea what was coming next. Family reunions at Uncle David's house were always a spectacle. His mansion wasn't just a home, it was a performance stage. Crystal chandeliers hung over ceilings painted with gold trim. Marble floors reflected every step like a mirror, and an entire wall in the living room was made of glass, showing off the backyard pool shaped like a crescent moon. Every detail screamed money, and every year I felt like the odd piece of furniture that didn't belong. I arrived earlier that evening by train, dragging a modest leather bag across the driveway while everyone else pulled up in shiny cars that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. Ryan had made sure to park his new Lamborghini right out front, angled perfectly so no one could miss it. He even casually left the door open when he got out so people could see the butter-soft interior. I walked past it with a polite smile, but inside, I could already hear his voice. Emily, still living small. Emily, still not keeping up. When I stepped into the house, Mom greeted me first. "Emily," she said, rushing forward to hug me, her pearl earrings brushing my cheek. She always smelled faintly of lavender and vanilla. She held on to me like she wanted to shield me from what was waiting inside. "Hi, Mom," I smiled, holding her hands. "You look lovely," she whispered, her eyes scanning my simple dress. "Don't let them bother you tonight." Behind her, Dad cleared his throat. Charles Hayes was the kind of man who always looked sharp, even in his 60s. His suit was perfectly tailored, his tie straight, his shoes shining like they were polished an hour ago. He gave me a nod. Not warm, not cold, just reserved. That was his way. "Glad you made it," he said, then quickly turned toward Ryan, who was already boasting about his car. That was Dad's way of showing approval, not by praising me, but by attaching himself to the family member who did fit his definition of success. The living room was packed. My cousins were already sipping champagne. Uncle David, the host, sat in his grand chair like a king on a throne, telling a story about his latest real estate deal while everyone hung on his every word. He noticed me walk in, gave a nod, and went right back to his story. I sat down quietly on the couch, folding my hands in my lap, trying not to draw attention. But of course, that never worked. In this family, attention was currency, and silence was considered weakness. It didn't take long before the spotlight found me. "So, Emily," Aunt Carol chirped, adjusting her diamond necklace. "Still working. What is it you do again?" "I run a startup," I said simply. Ryan laughed. "Startup. That's just another word for broke with ambition." The room chuckled. Uncle David raised an eyebrow like he found the comment amusing. Dad just pressed his lips together, not defending me, not correcting anyone. Mom squeezed my hand. "Emily works hard." "You should be proud," but Ryan wasn't done. He leaned forward, grinning. "And how did you get here, Emily? Still riding those trains like it's freshman year?" The jab hit harder than he realized. Because yes, I had taken the train. I liked it. It gave me time to think, to read, to catch my breath. But in their eyes, it was a symbol of failure. They measured success in leather seats, horsepower, and private drivers. To them, I might as well have shown up barefoot. Dad let out a quiet sigh, rubbing his forehead. "She's always been practical," he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. That word again, practical. The polite replacement for not enough. Heat rose to my cheeks, but I stayed calm. Over the years, I'd learned not to fight back too soon. Let them laugh. Let them think I was small. Because tonight, things would be different. Tonight, they were going to see me in a way they never had before. But in that moment, sitting on the couch, while Ryan bragged about his $250,000 car while Uncle David compared vacation homes, while Dad looked disappointed but resigned, I felt like the outsider again. I glanced down at my wrist, at the watch that would change everything. To them, it looked like a small accessory. To me, it was a reminder of the path I had walked alone, the sacrifices I had made, the years of being dismissed, and deep inside, I smiled because they had no idea what was coming. Ryan had always been good at commanding attention. He didn't even need to raise his voice, just a smirk, a pause, a glance at his watch, and everyone leaned in. Tonight he was in rare form. "So," he began, swirling the ice in his glass. "I just closed a deal at the firm. Biggest one of my career. Took home a 6-figure bonus." The room buzzed with admiration. My aunt gasped, someone clapped, and Uncle David nodded proudly like a general congratulating his soldier. "That's incredible, Ryan," Dad said, his eyes lighting up in a way I rarely saw when he looked at me. "Hard work pays off." Ryan leaned back, grinning. "Well, you know me. Work hard, play hard. That's why I had to upgrade to the Lambo. The Porsche was starting to feel basic, more laughter. Ryan thrived on it. He thrived on putting others beneath him. And you," he turned suddenly, eyes sharp on me. "Emily, what about you? Still running that little project of yours?" He said it like it was a hobby, not a company. A pastime to keep me busy until I gave up. I forced a smile. "It's going well." He raised his eyebrows. "Going well. That's vague. You know, if it were me, I'd have numbers, figures, real proof." Uncle David chuckled. "He's right, Emily. Business is about results. If you can't measure it, it's not real." The words burned, but I stayed calm. I'd learned that snapping back too quickly only gave them more to laugh about. Ryan wasn't done. "Tell me, how do you even get to your meetings?" "Uber? Bus? Oh no, the train, right?" There it was, the jab that always found its mark. The room chuckled again, and my father let out another one of his sighs, the kind that said, "You're embarrassing me." I clenched my hands under the table. My chest tightened, not from shame, but from the familiar weight of years of underestimation. To them, I would always be the one who didn't measure up. I thought about the nights I'd stayed up until sunrise, building my company brick by brick, about the meals I skipped to save money for payroll, about the years of taking the train because every dollar had to go back into the business, and yet here they were, still mocking me as if I had accomplished nothing. Ryan leaned forward, his smile wide. "So what is it you actually do, Emily? I mean, do you even make money, or is this one of those passion projects?" Something inside me hardened. My pulse quickened. I wanted to tell him everything, the growth, the contracts, the recognition, but I held it back. Timing mattered. Instead, I let him talk. He went on about his car, his bonus, his condo in the city. Each word was a performance, and the audience was hooked. Even Dad chimed in, asking questions, encouraging him. But then, everything shifted. Ryan's eyes flicked to my wrist. His smirk returned. "Cute watch," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let me guess, Amazon special? Or did the train station have a gift shop?" The laughter this time was louder. Even Uncle David grinned. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just lifted my glass and took a sip of water, calm as ever. And that's when Dad froze. His eyes locked onto my wrist, his face drained of color. He leaned closer, squinting, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. His hand trembled slightly as he pointed. "Emily," he whispered, his voice low but sharp. "Do you know what you're wearing?" The room fell quiet. Everyone turned. Ryan chuckled. "Oh, come on, Uncle Charles. That thing's a fake. Don't tell me you're buying into her little act." But Dad wasn't laughing. He sat up straighter, his eyes wide with disbelief. "That's not a fake. That's a Zenith Chronomaster limited edition. Only 10 exist. That watch is worth $2 million. Gasps filled the room. Aunt Carol dropped her fork. Mom covered her mouth with her hand. Jacob's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Ryan blinked, his smirk faltering. "2 million?" Dad nodded slowly, never taking his eyes off me. "Where did you get this, Emily?" The attention was crushing, yet exhilarating. For the first time in years, the entire room wasn't laughing at me. They were stunned into silence. I set my glass down carefully, then looked around the room. At Ryan's reddening face, at Uncle David's raised eyebrows, at my father's unsteady hands, and I smiled. "This old thing?" I said lightly, lifting my wrist just enough for the watch to shimmer under the chandelier. "Oh, it's nothing special." The room was so still you could hear the ice crackle in Ryan's glass. Dad's words hung in the air like thunder. $2 million. Everyone's eyes were on me, their disbelief pressing down, their curiosity burning through the silence. I lifted my wrist again, just slightly, letting the light catch the polished steel and sapphire crystal. "This old thing," I said softly with a small smile, "it was a gift." The words hit like a stone dropped in water, rippling through the room. Ryan leaned forward, his smirk returning, though it looked weaker now. A gift? From who? The train conductor? His laugh was sharp, forced, a desperate attempt to claw back control. But I didn't bite. I looked at him calmly, my voice steady. From someone who believed in me long before anyone else did. Dad frowned, confused. "Emily, are you saying someone gave you that? For what?" I glanced at him, then at the circle of faces around me. For the first time in years, They weren't dismissing me. They weren't mocking me. They were waiting. Hanging on my words, inside my chest burned with everything I had carried silently for so long. The years of being underestimated, the sacrifices, the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I'd made the wrong choices, the laughter at reunions, the sighs of disappointment, the endless comparisons to Ryan. And now, finally, the moment had come where I had the power to change the narrative. I took a breath. The truth is, I've been building something. Quietly, while everyone thought I was just getting by. Uncle David tilted his head. Building what, exactly? His tone carried that familiar skepticism, like he was already preparing to dismiss me. My fingers brushed the watch face, remembering the moment it had been placed on my wrist. I saw the face of my mentor, venture capitalist who had believed in me when others laughed. I remembered the day we signed the deal that changed everything, the day my startup finally stopped being a passion project and became a company with weight in the market. I remembered the way he'd smiled and said, "You've earned this, Emily." Wear it as a reminder, I looked back up at my family. "I run a company," I said firmly. "Not just a project, not just a hobby, a real company with employees, clients, and contracts." The silence deepened. Ryan scoffed, trying to recover his swagger. "A company? Doing what? Selling arts and crafts on Etsy?" The laughter that followed was thinner this time, uncertain. I leaned forward, meeting his eyes directly. "No, Ryan. We build software platforms for mid-sized businesses. Our clients include national chains, law firms, and medical practices. Last quarter, we closed a deal worth more than your Lamborghini." The room shifted. Faces changed. Skepticism melted into something else. Doubt in him, belief in me. Mom squeezed my hand so hard I could feel her nails press into my skin. Her eyes shimmered with tears she didn't try to hide. Dad cleared his throat, still processing. "Emily, is this true? Why haven't you said anything?" "Because you never asked," I thought. "Because no one ever believed I was capable. But instead of bitterness, I chose calm. I chose grace." "I never felt the need to brag," I said, my voice even. While everyone else was focused on showing off what they had, I was focused on building something that lasted. Ryan's face turned red. "Oh, come on, if that were true, why are you still taking the train?" I smiled, the kind of smile that carried years of quiet strength. Because success isn't about what you flaunt. It's about choices. I invested every dollar back into my business so it could grow. Taking the train wasn't a sign of failure. It was a sign of discipline. The words landed like a hammer. Uncle David shifted uncomfortably in his chair. My younger cousins, who had been glued to their phones minutes ago, were now staring at me wide-eyed. Even Dad, who rarely showed emotion, looked shaken, his eyes darting between me and the watch as if he were seeing me for the first time. Inside, I felt the shift. For years, I had been the quiet one, the practical one, the underestimated one. Tonight, I had chosen differently. I wasn't hiding anymore. I straightened my shoulders, my voice steady but resolute. "And if you think the watch is impressive, just wait until you see what came next." Gasps, questions, a rising wave of voices. "What do you mean?" "Emily, what are you talking about? What else is there?" I leaned back into the couch, calm, unshaken. I let their questions swirl around me, let their curiosity build, because I knew exactly what I was about to show them. I let the silence stretch, just long enough for the room to feel the weight of my words. They were still buzzing about the watch, whispering, glancing at me like I was a stranger who had slipped into their midst. Then I leaned forward, placed my phone on the coffee table, and tapped the screen. The big television mounted on Uncle David's wall flickered to life. For a moment, the reflection of the chandelier blinded everyone, and then the images appeared. At first, it was a photo of my office. Sleek glass walls, rows of polished desks, a bright mural with my company's logo across it. Ryan frowned. "What's this?" I smiled. "That's my office. Hayes Tech Solutions." We're on the top floor of the Westview Tower downtown. Gasps rippled through the room. Westview Tower wasn't just any building. It was a landmark, home to law firms, financial giants, and companies everyone in the city knew by name. I swiped again. A photo of my team filled the screen. 50 smiling faces, men and women from different backgrounds gathered around me at our last holiday party. There were balloons, banners, and the glow of pride in every eye. "This is my team," I said quietly. 50 employees, 50 families that rely on me to keep the lights on. When you mocked me for taking the train, this is what I was riding toward every morning. The future we were building together. The room was silent, except for the faint clink of someone setting down a glass. Ryan laughed, though the sound was hollow now. "So you have an office and a few employees. Big deal. That doesn't make you—" I cut him off, swiping again. This time the photo was me standing on a stage, holding a crystal plaque. The banner behind me read, "Entrepreneur of the Year, State Business Association." "That," I said, looking directly at Ryan, "is the night I was honored for leading one of the fastest-growing startups in the state. While you were busy buying cars, I was signing contracts worth millions." The room erupted with voices. "Is this real? Oh my God, Emily? Why didn't she tell anyone?" Mom covered her mouth with her hands, tears welling in her eyes. "I knew it," she whispered. "I always knew you were destined for something big." Dad was frozen. His hands gripped his knees, his face unreadable, his eyes fixed on me like he was trying to reconcile the daughter he thought he knew with the woman in front of him. I kept going. Another swipe. And the screen filled with the company's revenue chart. It climbed like a mountain, year after year. "Last quarter," I said, steady and calm, "our revenue hit $8 million. Next year, we're projected to double that. And yes, Ryan, that's more than your Lamborghini." The room gasped again. Ryan's face was crimson now, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Uncle David, usually the loudest voice in the room, sat back in his chair, speechless for once. But I wasn't done. One final swipe. A video clip began to play. My mentor, the man who had gifted me the watch, introducing me at a tech conference in San Francisco. His words echoed through the living room speakers. "This young woman is the future. She turned sacrifice into success, discipline into dominance, and she's only just begun." The video cut to me, walking onto the stage, thousands of people clapping, cameras flashing. When it ended, I looked around the room, my chest rising and falling with the weight of the moment. "For years," I said, my voice steady but firm, "you all looked at me and saw someone small, someone practical, someone who didn't belong in these conversations about wealth and success. But while you were counting your toys, I was building an empire, quietly, patiently, and now, here we are." No one spoke. Dad's eyes glistened. He stood slowly, his voice low but raw. "Emily, I was wrong. I doubted you. I thought you'd settled, but you—" He swallowed hard. "You've surpassed every expectation I ever had." Mom stood too, pulling me into a hug so tight I thought she might never let go. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered against my ear. So proud." Ryan, still seated, muttered something under his breath, but no one laughed this time. No one joined him. The balance of the room had shifted. I stood tall, not gloating, not smug, just calm, strong, and finally seen. Because this was never about a watch. It was about every sacrifice, every moment of doubt, every train ride, every night I kept going when no one believed in me. And now they knew. Now they couldn't ignore me anymore. The room felt different now. The air that once carried laughter at my expense was heavy with something else. Respect, maybe even awe. The same relatives who used to dismiss me as practical or modest were staring at me like I was someone new. But I wasn't new. I was the same Emily. The only difference was that they finally saw me. Dad stood there, still struggling to process it all. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Emily, I owe you an apology. I judged you by the wrong standards. I thought success meant cars, houses, titles. But you—" He shook his head, his eyes misty. "You built something bigger than all of that." Hearing those words hit harder than I expected. For years I'd carried the quiet ache of never quite being enough in his eyes. Now, to hear him not only admit it, but replace disappointment with pride, it almost broke me. Mom pulled me close again, her voice thick with emotion. "I always knew you'd shine, sweetheart." I just didn't know when I hugged her back, warmth flooding through me. For the first time, I didn't feel like the outsider in my own family, but Ryan wasn't done. His face was still flushed, his jaw tight. So what? You've got a business. Big deal. Doesn't mean you're better than everyone else. I turned to him, calm and steady. It's not about being better, Ryan. It's about proving that success isn't measured by how loud you brag, but by what you build when no one's looking. He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. For once, Ryan, the cousin who always had a comeback, always had the room, had nothing. Uncle David shifted in his chair, his voice quieter than usual. I'll admit, I underestimated you, Emily. I thought you were wasting your time. Clearly, I was wrong. That was as close to an apology as I'd ever get from him, and it was enough. I looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes. The silence stretched, heavy but powerful. Then I broke it. You know, I said, my voice steady, all those years I took the train. You thought it meant I was failing. But what it really meant was that I was making choices. I was sacrificing comfort today for stability tomorrow. Every stop, every long ride, every moment I sat alone on those late-night trains, that was me choosing discipline over ego. And tonight, that discipline speaks for itself. A few cousins nodded slowly. Others shifted, uncomfortable, but thoughtful. Dad sat back down, exhaling deeply, his shoulders sinking. For the first time, I think he let go of the weight of his own expectations. The night carried on, but it was different now. The conversations no longer circled around Ryan's car or Uncle David's deals. Instead, they asked about my company, my team, my future. For once, the spotlight wasn't a weapon against me. It was mine to hold. Later, as people began to leave, Dad pulled me aside near the door. His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. Emily, I should have told you this years ago, but I'll say it now. I'm proud of you. More than you know, those words, simple as they were, healed something deep inside me. On the train ride home, yes, I still chose the train. I sat by the window, watching the city lights blur past. My watch ticked softly against my wrist, its weight no longer just a symbol of my mentor's belief, but of my own journey. I thought about the laughter, the humiliation, the sighs of disappointment. And then I thought about the look on their faces tonight when they finally saw the truth. And that's when I realized the lesson, the one I wanted to leave with anyone listening to my story. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's not about what you wear, what you drive, or what people think of you at reunions. It's about what you build, what you endure, and what you become when no one's watching. I looked down at the watch one more time, smiling. Because tonight, it wasn't just a $2 million timepiece. It was proof that every sacrifice had been worth it. And as the train carried me forward, I knew something with absolute certainty. This was only the beginning. And that's my story. For years, I was underestimated, mocked, and written off. Not just by my cousin, but by my own father, by relatives who thought success could only be measured by luxury cars and shiny toys. And yet all it took was one moment, one watch, and one truth to flip the script and remind them, and myself, that real success is built quietly, patiently, and with sacrifice. If you've ever been doubted, if you've ever been laughed at, if people have ever told you that you weren't enough, remember this. Their voices don't define you. What you build, what you create, and what you believe about yourself, that is what defines you. Now, if this story resonated with you, if it lit a fire in your chest the way it still lights one in mine, do me a favor. Like this video so it can reach others who might need the reminder. Share it with a friend or family member who needs to hear that their sacrifices are worth it. Drop a comment below. Tell me about a time someone underestimated you and how you proved them wrong. I'd love to hear your stories. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Stories that remind us of our strength, our resilience, and the victories that often come when we least expect them. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. And I'll see you in the next story.